Hello Raptors fans and welcome back to Raptors Report. Today we'll be discussing the Toronto Raptors game against the Brooklyn Nets, but before we do that, we're doing something a little different. As you can see here, we are in Tankathon and we are going to be looking at some scenarios and particularly what the Raptors could be doing this year in the draft. And this website basically shows you what the odds are based on where you are, your win-loss record, and where you sit amongst your peers near the bottom. And as you can see, the Toronto Raptors are pretty much kind of locked into the 7th seed here in this year's draft. So Brooklyn and Philadelphia have unfortunately out-tanked the Raptors, and as you can see, they are a lot lower. They're about 3 games behind where the Raptors are in terms of win-loss, so they are above them in the tank standings. And Miami has lost a ton of games recently. As you can see, they are 2-8 right now. So they have sort of fallen into the Raptors' range, but I'm pretty confident that with 10 games to go, the Toronto Raptors will probably be able to end up with the 7th best lottery odds in this year's draft. And as you can see, that gives them the chance to pick in the top 4, about a 32% chance of moving up into the top 4 of this year's draft, with a 7.5% chance of getting the #1 overall pick. So that could be pretty cool. We're going to take a look at some of the draft outcomes here. The chance that they pick at 7 is kind of low. It would take none of the teams behind them jumping above them in the draft lottery. So there's a very good chance that they either move up in this year's draft or drop. So we will start simming the draft lottery, and then I'm going to give you my take based on what the simulated mock draft says are going to be the picks above the Toronto Raptors, and I'm going to give you my take on who the Toronto Raptors should draft at a certain position. Okay, so let's take a look. We're going to start with our first simmed lottery right now. Okay, cross your fingers, guys. Let's see where the Raptors end up. Okay, very cool. The Toronto Raptors, first try, have moved from the 7th spot all the way up to number 4, which is very cool. So as you can see, Tankathon has created the mock picks here, with Cooper Flag going number 1, Dylan Harper going number 2, Ace Bailey going number 3, and at number 4, the Toronto Raptors are sitting there, and it says that they are going to be drafting VJ Edgecombe. And I cannot argue with this. I think that VJ Edgecombe is firmly in the top 4 of this year's draft. He is one of the best guards in this year's draft. He is an extremely explosive athlete who has, some of the best physical tools that I have seen. I've done a draft evaluation on VJ Edgecombe. If you want to go into the video section or into the description of this video, you can take a look at what I thought of him. And this was, a couple months ago, when he was maybe not seen as one of the top players in this class. So he has risen and is now very comfortably within the top 4 of this year's draft. And I would say he is in the same tier as Ace Bailey. I think that this is a 4-player draft in terms of like the elite prospects that you're going to be looking at drafting. And in fact, I kind of have him above Ace Bailey, and it's kind of comfortable that the Toronto Raptors are at 4 here and Ace Bailey went above where the Raptors are picking, because I think VJ Edgecombe is going to be a better player. But of course, the Toronto Raptors have a whole bunch of players who play at the guard spot. And so you'd have to make the difficult decision of drafting, a player who fits better versus a player who maybe has a bit more upside and is a bit more of an exciting prospect. So let's just take a quick look at some of the stats here. So yeah, he is going to be when he's drafted just under 20 years old. And as you can see here, 6'5", he's a shooting guard, kind of a combo guard, can handle the ball, but can also play off of the ball. He is an excellent defender, really, really, really good defender, really explosive athlete. He has this kind of juice, the kind of springs that you would see from like a Derrick Rose or a Russell Westbrook. He has that kind of athleticism. He is a really exciting player. And as you can see, he's stuffing the stat sheet, especially in terms of steals. He is, the advanced stats say he's a very positive defender. When you watch him play, he is a really, really exciting player with the ball in his hands or off of the ball. And I think that his potential at that shooting guard spot is kind of off the charts. He has, you know, a lot of upside, and I think that the Raptors would be very well off taking him at number 4. So at number 4, if VJ Edgecombe drops to the Toronto Raptors, that would be very exciting. And I would be very happy if the Raptors were to move up into the top 4 of this year's draft. It's going to be worth it for sure. Okay, so let's take a look at the second one here. Okay. Wow. You know, is this an omen? First 2 times, VJ Edgecombe at number 4, twice. So let's do it again. Hey, maybe I should be the one, you know, representing the Toronto Raptors at the draft lottery. 2 4th overall picks. And now, you know, the ultimate, the number 1 pick. The Toronto Raptors have moved all the way up from number 7 to number 1. And you guys said tanking wasn't worth it. Oh, we couldn't have gotten the number 1 overall pick. The odds are so low. Hey, look at this. Okay. We're going to get into Cooper Flag territory here because this is slam dunk number 1 overall pick. And this is just the funniest chart here. Like, just take a look at this. Yeah, he is a special prospect. I was talking about him a couple months ago. I think the first video I did in terms of draft evaluations was Cooper Flag, talked about how the Raptors could draft him 1st overall. And yeah, he's gotten better since I made that video. So at that point, he was not shooting the 3 very well. I think he was in the mid-20s in terms of 3-point percentage. And yeah, that's not a problem anymore. He's shooting over 35%, which is right in the comfort range of players who, you know, can shoot. And it's not like that's the reason you're going to be drafting him. It's not like he's only a shooter. In fact, that's like, you know, a 4th skill like that you're really excited about. He is a super, super special prospect in almost every way you can think of. He has almost every single attribute that you would want from a prospect. He is an incredible athlete. He is an incredible defender. He is a good shooter. He is a good scorer. He can generate his own shot. He can handle the ball. He has really good processing. He makes plays for other people. He can play on-ball defense. He can play rim defense. He is almost, you know, he is getting better every time. He is one of the youngest players in this year's draft. He's 18 and a half. He was playing against the men's team, the USA men's team, and holding his own. He is an extremely productive player in terms of stats. He is one of the best prospects I've seen in a very long time. And he is going to be, I think, just a slam dunk star player in the NBA. I don't want to jinx it, like especially if the Toronto Raptors draft him 1st overall. But it's hard to imagine how this guy busts. Like, I don't know, maybe his shot just never materializes. He just goes into a shooting funk. But even then, his defense and his ability to read defenses, his athleticism, gosh, he has so many different things going for him. Like, look, just like this is it. BPM just basically is like, what are you doing on the court from a box score perspective? He's doing everything. Like, you just look at this, it's all green. In terms of like the advanced statistics, it says he's one of the best defenders in college basketball. And I mean, if you watch him play, there's no surprise there. He is an elite rim protector and a very good help defender and like a good perimeter defender. He can move his feet. Yeah, he just does everything. And the Toronto Raptors would be, you know, blessed to have this guy on their team. And then, you know, I don't know, maybe there's some overlap. I think the Raptors kind of need a forward anyway, so you'd have to figure out who goes to the bench because, you know, Cooper Flag's not going to the bench, let's be honest here. So yeah, this would be absolutely fantastic if the Raptors were able to draft him. Okay. Wow, I'm kind of excited to see where we go from here. I'm kind of hoping that maybe I get to talk about, you know, if the Raptors draft a little later. So let's take a look. Okay. Are you guys watching this? I swear to God, this is the first time I did this today. This is crazy. 2 4s and then 1 1. Sorry, 2 4s, 2 number 1 overall picks. This is nuts. Yeah, Cooper Flag again. I mean, hey, Masai, you know, drop me a line, leave a comment. If you need somebody to represent the Raptors, I'm here, okay? All right, let's try again. Okay, all right, so this is another pretty kind of like something that's rather low chance of happening. So the Toronto Raptors are remaining at 7. So nobody leapfrogged them. There were a couple of teams that moved up and down ahead of them, and the Raptors pick at number 7. So this is not very likely to happen, but it is where the Raptors are. So let's take a look. So it has the Toronto Raptors taking Con Knipple with this pick, and I would not do that if I were the Toronto Raptors. I think Con is a good player. I think that I'm not exactly sold on his upside. I think he would be a solid player who can shoot the ball and be maybe a high-end role player. But I think that you would try and swing a little bit higher, like try and swing a bit harder, try and hit a home run with this pick. And I think that the guy with the highest upside, and a guy that the Raptors could use, and a player that I like, and especially at number 7, I think I would take Kamen Malawach. And this, I think, is the consensus pick among the people who are watching this video. They think, you know, he fits from a fit perspective, but also I think the upside is very tantalizing as well. So he is another very young player. As you can see here, he is about 18 and a half years old. And he is a productive scorer in terms of just being able to execute the pick and roll, where he is a very good lob threat. He makes, you know, as you can see here, offensive rating. He makes Duke's offense work very well. People are very scared of him as a role threat, that you really have to pick him up and stop him from getting to the basket, because otherwise he's just easily dunking it. But I think that really what you're looking at with this guy is a 7'2" monster, absolute monstrous man. He's 7'2" with an insane wingspan and good foot speed. This is a thing that you have to take into account when you're looking at larger players, is how do they move around? A lot of the time, bigger players have trouble guarding on the perimeter, in the pick and roll. Of course, they can play drop defense, but even drop defense requires mobility and reading angles and being able to sort of cut off penetration. And so you have to have at least some foot speed, and he does. He is a very fluid athlete. He can move around the court. He's exciting in that he can cover a lot of ground, and his defensive potential is off the charts. So we're talking about a guy who could become, you know, a Rudy Gobert style defender. When I said Rudy Gobert, when I mentioned this guy the first time in the comment section, people were pissed. They're like, hell no, I don't want to draft Rudy Gobert. Listen, guys, okay, I know people don't like Rudy Gobert, and I get it, personality-wise, and also his offensive game never developed, and he's kind of a role player. But on defense, guys, defense, I'm talking about defensive potential. Rudy Gobert is probably the best defensive player of the past decade. He instantly turns your defense into a top 10 defense. I don't know where the Timberwolves are this year. They've been pretty bad, but you know, for his career, he's been extremely good defensively. So let's just say that he is has Rudy Gobert defensive upside. On offense, there's a couple of things going for him. Yeah, of course, the ability to catch the ball. But as I mentioned, when you look at his game tape, when he was in Africa, when he was playing in international competitions with his national team, in the African League circuit, there's some other stuff there too that's kind of interesting. They let him play a little bit more free and easy than he is at Duke. And I think that the Toronto Raptors are a good development team. They will put this guy in a position to succeed. They'll bring him along at the right pace. They'll be able to play him behind Jakob Poeltl until he gets accustomed to playing at the NBA speed. And there's no better mentor, really, I think, than Jakob Poeltl. The guy is like a true pro. Gosh, when you hear the guy speaks, he's about the team first, and he plays the right way. So playing Kamen Malawach behind him, that makes complete sense to me. I think that he would be just an easy pick at number 7 in this year's draft. We're only going to do a couple more here because I do want to get into the game. So why don't we do one more? Maybe if the Toronto Raptors, I'm going to sim until the Raptors fall further than 7. If we get to number 1 overall, again, you got to leave something in the comment. Maybe like the finger, the number 1 finger pointing up. Leave that in the comments. Are you kidding me? Okay. I don't know what's happening here, but the sim is just, it seems stuck. Okay, number 3 overall. This is a little different. As I mentioned before, I'm not going to go too far into this. You would have to choose between Ace Bailey and VJ Edgecombe. I think VJ Edgecombe is an incredibly, like, he has a huge upside. So you would have to choose between Ace Bailey, who is a good player. We'll just quickly take here. As you can see, I mean, there's a lot of like weaknesses here. I don't think that these are like, you know, the Bible or anything like that. He does have some holes in his game. I think that he needs to work on his processing. He has some, you know, downsides to his game. He's not a great passer. His defense needs a little bit of work, but there's a lot of potential. I think he will turn out to be a good player, but I'm maybe not as high on him as some other people. I think that he is within the top 4. I don't think that he's like a bad player or anything, but I would take VJ Edgecombe above him. I'm really high on VJ Edgecombe, but of course you have to think about fit as well. I'll leave that up to you. What do you think? If you are hearing this, who would you take at number 3? Would you take Ace Bailey? Would you take VJ Edgecombe? I think that 1, 2 is pretty solidified here. Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, I think they are going number 1, number 2 with a bullet. So you kind of have to think about, if you land at 3, are you going to go for the guy that fits the team a little better? Are you a big fan of Ace Bailey? Let me know in the comments. Okay, let's see. Okay, finally. Common Malwatch, already talked about him. Let's see here. Common Malwatch. Let's see if we can get the Raptors to drop down low. Let's do the nightmare scenario here where the Raptors drop to like 9 or 10. Okay, number 2 overall. This is absurd. I mean, yeah, okay. Well, we'll talk about Dylan Harper quickly if the Raptors get to number 2. This is a slam dunk pick. Dylan Harper is an amazing player. He really reminds me of like Cade Cunningham, those large guards that can play with the ball in their hands. He has a really good first step. He has really good athleticism going to the rim. He reads the game at a very high level. He's a really good passer. He's a great finisher on the inside. He's a good, like the 33% here, he is generating a lot of those shots like for himself. I think at the next level, I think that he's going to have that in his game, the ability to pull up off the dribble and hit shots. I don't think this is necessarily representative. I think he's going to be a better shooter than this. I am just like really high on Dylan Harper. I think that he's going to be a super, super good player. I think that he has star potential. I think that he's going to improve the floor of your team for the next decade. He is that good of a player. I think that he just easily, he ticks all of the boxes that you would want at the point guard position in the NBA. He is big, he can score, he can make plays for his teammates. He is just the type of guy that you want on your team. Of course, there's a couple of things, like as you can see here, the defensive win shares, defensive rating. I do think he needs to get a little bit better on defense. I think that his foot speed laterally isn't the best, but I think that if you were to have like a better point of attack defender, you can play him with a smaller guard or maybe like a stopper on the perimeter, and he's just going to carry your offense and make you look amazing. So yeah, big fan of Dylan Harper, and I would be very happy picking him at number 2. Let's go here. Come on. Come on. Aha, here we go. Okay, so as you can see, the Toronto Raptors have fallen all the way down to number 10, and somebody picked Derek Queen above the Toronto Raptors, the Brooklyn Nets. So I guess they could use, you know, a front court player. They've got Cam Thomas. Maybe they don't want a guy like Jeremiah Fears, who I like quite a bit. And I think, honestly, it would be, I think, between Fears. I like Colin Murray Boyles here. I like Noah Esenge. Or Esenge, I believe is the pronunciation. But Jeremiah Fears has, you know, really shown what he's capable of in the elimination game that he played in March Madness, where unfortunately Oklahoma was eliminated. He was really good. He kind of kept them afloat for a long time. He has a really good handle on the ball. I like him as a, you know, a scoring option in the NBA. He's also a very young player, as you can see. He's about, he'll be about 18 and a half at the time of the draft. He's a really, really, really exciting looking player. And of course, all of this is, it's not too flattering, as you can see, but what I like about him is that when you watch him play, he has a really good handle. He has really good explosiveness going to the rim. He's got great body control. He has number 1 scoring option look. Like, he looks like he could be a number 1 scoring option in the NBA. He's a really exciting player, and I would be fine with drafting him. I think that if the Raptors were to draft him, I think that they'd probably bring him off the bench to start. I think he needs a little bit more seasoning at the next level because he is quite young. I don't think he's ready to step in and just immediately take over your point guard responsibilities. I think if you bring him off the bench and give him a lot of touches, a lot of rope, he could really show you something exciting. And yeah, I mean, there's a couple of flaws to his game. Let's talk about another guy that I really like at number 10, because I think number 10, it's a possibility. And of course, a lot of guys are off the board already. Trey Johnson, really like him. Of course, I talked about Kaman Malawach, like him as well. So Fears is a guy I would consider taking there. I do like Jace Richardson, as I mentioned. I think that he is a good player. I really like Cullen Murray-Boyles. I think that he is a player. I spoke about him, and I like him. I also like Noah Senge at this spot. So let's talk about him a little bit. I've done a video on him if you want to take a look at the description, if you get a better breakdown. But he is kind of like the stereotypical new school forward. So he can handle the ball. He's a very good defender. He can play off of the ball. He's a great cutter. He's very long and tall and thin. He's a great athlete. He can play on the break. He is a young player. He's like, look at that, pretty much exactly the same age as Cooper Flagg. And, you know, he's from France, and they've been putting out a lot of prospects, really good prospects recently. And I know it doesn't really mean anything. Yeah, he's from the same country. Who cares? But, you know, he is in the international scene. He's playing against men for Ratio Farm in Germany, one of the top leagues in Europe, and he's doing very well there. He looks like a player who is going to be a very toolsy player that I think could help a team, especially on the defensive end. And then the offensive upside is just the fact that he is a very fluid athlete. He looks okay with the ball in his hands. He can play off of the ball, and I think that there's potential for his three-point shot to get a lot better. You know, he plays the right way. When you watch him play, he's making the right decision, and he looks like a lump of clay that you could mold into a very good player. So I'd like him. I also like, at number 10, we'll talk about Cullen Murray-Boyles. He is one of my favorite players in this draft class. He's a little bit older. He's 20. I mean, like, geez, all these players in this draft class are so young that even like a 20-year-old sophomore seems old at this point. But as you can see, you know, assist to usage, he's a really good passer for what he does on the court. He's got great touch around the basket, just like really, really good touch. He can handle the ball. He's really good on defense in terms of just understanding how plays develop. He's got nice long arms. He can play, I think, the 5 at spurts. You can run a lot of offense through him because he's a good passer. Just really like him. I think he's going to be a really good pro at the next level. I think he would be a good pick at number 10. So that kind of gives you my overview of what the Raptors might be able to do if they were to, at all the different draft spots. Man, we got to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 10. Yeah, so Masai, give me a call if you want somebody to get you those good lottery picks. Get you up into the top 4. You know who to talk to. Anyhow, there was a game last night, so we're going to transfer over to that. All right, so we are going to get to the Toronto Raptors game. They played against the Brooklyn Nets last night, and we will discuss this game because it didn't go the way that I think a lot of fans wanted it to go. I don't think that the Raptors were really looking very hard at winning this game, but they were able to. They were able to defeat the Brooklyn Nets, who looked just absolutely pitiful. It was kind of a sad display, and yeah, I guess they just know how to tank a little bit better than the Toronto Raptors. So this was a blowout. This was a 30-point blowout. The Toronto Raptors won 16 to the Brooklyn Nets 86. Not a lot of resistance for the Raptors, I'll be honest here. And we're going to get into the player evaluations, and there's some surprises here. I think this is the first time that Orlando Robinson has received the top overall billing in this section. He doesn't start all of the time, and when he does start, he's usually toward the back end, but not last night. He was really exciting. So he had 23 points on 10 of 14 shooting. So he was unbelievably efficient, especially compared to where he usually settles in this category. Usually he's not a very good shooter around the rim, but he was last night. He even hit a 3. He was 1 for 1 from 3 with 2 free throws and 12 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, 2 turnovers. Yeah, this was like a masterpiece performance. This was only in 24 minutes. So yeah, I don't know how much stock you should put into this. However, he was playing against Nick Claxton, and Nick Claxton has been a good player for the Brooklyn Nets. He's kind of tailed off, in my opinion, in terms of, I thought he was going to be like a big steal for whoever picked him up, but he hasn't really been that exciting for the Brooklyn Nets. He's just kind of like an average center. But yeah, Orlando Robinson kicked some serious butt. He was really efficient. He was a good rebounder, played good defense. And although Nick Claxton did have a good game, pretty much you went band for band with him with 22 points and 11 rebounds. So like only one, point less, one rebound less, and had 5 blocks. I still think that Orlando Robinson held his own, did a really good job. And he was doing a good job helping to run the offense. He was making smart passes. He was getting to the rim on the pick and roll, and the Raptors were doing a very good job of finding him. He was kind of doing the Jakob Poeltl thing, where you find the correct angle to be on the court, make yourself available for passes, and then convert at the rim. I still like his moves around the rim don't look that good, but the Nets are pretty undersized, and they don't have a lot of players who can. I mean, Nick Claxton is good at guarding the rim, but everybody else is just kind of pitiful in that regard. So yeah, he had a really good game. I don't know if this really means too much. I don't want to sound like a hater because I have been down on him. But in this game, the Brooklyn Nets were so bad that I don't know if you can come away thinking it's like, he's back, baby. Oh yeah, Orlando Robinson. I will give him props and say like he had a really good game, but I don't know if you can extrapolate too much from this. If he has a really solid end of the season, I'll change my tune, but obviously I want to look at bigger sample sizes. That said, good job. Next up, we'll go to Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes had another pretty inefficient night on offense. So 15 points on 17 shots. He missed 1 3, so you can't even really blame his 3-point shooting for his inefficiency. He was 3 of 3 from the free throw line, had 7 rebounds, 5 assists, which is good, 1 block, and the block was sick on Noah Clowney, and 4 turnovers. And his defense was really good, although I would say this is kind of a down game for him. Although, like, after Orlando Robinson, I don't think anybody in the starting lineup had a really amazing statistical game. Everybody was pretty inefficient. And so basically the tiebreaker here was the defense. I think Scotty Barnes was playing amazing defense. Just, he is so, like, the stats don't say it. 0 steals, 1 block. And although the block was spectacular, that is not how you evaluate defense, in my opinion. Of course, steals and blocks are nice, and sometimes, and they are, a symptom of good defense. A lot of the time you see those and you can, like, they speak to how disruptive a player is, but a lot of the time those can be red herrings, and you really do have to watch the game to find out how good of a defender somebody is. And Scotty was just very, very impactful on defense. He completely shut down Noah Clowney. Like, if you look at him, Noah Clowney is a rotation player for the Brooklyn Nets. He had 5 points on 1 of 9 shooting, and the only shot he hit was a 3. Just like complete domination. Scotty Barnes was like all over the place, picking up everybody on the perimeter, playing help defense. He was just really good defensively. And then on offense, he didn't have a great night. 5 assists, 4 turnovers. That's not great. 15 points on 17 shots. That's also not good. But again, the starting lineup outside of Orlando Robinson wasn't that good. In fact, we're going to go to the next player who had a kind of similar game in terms of efficiency, and that was RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett had 15 points on 13 shots. He was 1 of 4 from 3. He was 4 of 5 from the line, so that's a positive sign. He did have a good night at the free throw line. He had 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 1 turnover. I thought this was a solid game. Not very efficient, but he was making plays and he was scoring decently. At the free throw line, especially going to the line, that's a big element of his game. He can get into the paint and draw fouls. And, 5 assists to 1 turnover, that's also very good. But obviously, he's not going to be as impactful on defense as Scotty Barnes is, although I don't think it was a bad night for him on that end either. So, good job. Next up, we will go to Jamal Shed, and maybe Jamal Shed, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, these 3 guys, maybe you could give Jamal Shed the nod at number 2 because he did have a good game. 7 points and 2 of 8 shooting, so that's not that great. He was 2 of 5 from 3, so that's positive, and 1 of 2 from the free throw line. So not a very efficient night from the field, but the other stats were just pretty magnificent. 5 rebounds, 2 offensive rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, 0 blocks, 1 turnover. He was just completely on D'Angelo Russell, just like white on rice, just attached to him. And D'Angelo Russell had a really poor game. He's usually a Raptors killer. He had 5 points on 2 of 8 shooting. He was 1 of 7 from 3 with 4 turnovers. Jamal Shead had 3 steals. A lot of them were on D'Angelo Russell. Just amazing defense. And then on offense, like, the efficiency wasn't great. 8 assists with 1 turnover. Man, this guy is good. This guy is just, he really moves the needle on both ends of the court, and he makes plays. And Orlando Robinson, you know, he can be thankful because he was the recipient of a ton of Jamal Shead passes. I thought he had a really good game. Maybe he should be number 2 here. I don't want to sound too biased because I really like Jamal Shead. I've been pulling for him all year. Man, this guy is a really sweet player. Love watching him play. Last up, we'll go to Jacoby Walter, who, I mean, everybody had different shades of mediocre after Orlando Robinson, especially from a statistical perspective. So Jacoby Walter was no different. He had 11 points on 14 shots. He was 1 of 5 from 3, so not efficient. 2 free throws, 2 rebounds, 6 assists. That's really nice to see. 0 steals, 0 blocks, 0 turnovers in 30 minutes. And I think he played good defense too. Of course, you know, the Raptors switch a lot on screens, so a lot of the time you're not going to have the same person defending the same person every time down the floor. And Jacoby Walter did a really good job on everybody he was put in front of. He is a very, you know, versatile defender. He's a very disruptive defender. He stays attached to players, really good at the point of attack, really good at help defense. I just think he's a really good defender. And although he didn't have a great night in terms of scoring the ball, the 6 assists is nice to see. So, you know, always love watching Jacoby Walter play. And he had a sick dunk attempt. God, he could have brought the house down at the end of the game. Next up, let's go to the bench. Okay, so yeah, right here, the man of the match off of the bench, maybe even the best player in the game, just in terms of what he was able to do. Jonathan Mobo was awesome. So 16 points on 10 shots, 5 of 10, and really, really good ability to finish. This has been his weakness. And I think off of the bench, the nets are pretty small, so he had a lot of opportunities to score around the rim without a shot blocker. And he did a really good job. He really capitalized. Very efficient there. He went to the line a bunch, so 6 of 6 from the free throw line. He had 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 2 turnovers, so just packed the stat sheet. He was the highest plus-minus player in this game with 25. You don't usually put a ton of, you know, stock in that kind of thing, but I think that, you know, it spoke to what he was able to deliver. He had an impact on almost every category of the game, as the stat sheet showed. The defense was great. His ability to finish and catch the ball inside, like, that has been his Achilles heel all year long. And this game, it was not a problem. He had a whole bunch of dunks. That was really, I think, the difference here. He wasn't only relying on his touch. He was dunking the ball, and that's what I want to see. When he gets inside, I'd love to see him try and dunk. Even if he doesn't make the shot, he will probably get a lot more free throws that way. So good job. Next up, Ochai Agbaji had a good game. 12 points on 5 of 8 shooting. He was 2 of 5 from 3. He had a couple of, I think he hit one of them above the break. And yeah, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 1 turnover. Good defense. You know, when he's bringing the other things to the table, he really does a good job guarding people. I think that he's just a really solid defender. And when he's making his shots, he has a positive impact on the floor, and he really did. Last but not least, we will talk about Jamison Battle. Jamison Battle was pretty efficient, so he had 8 points on 5 shots. He was 2 of 3 from 3, went 2 of 2 from the line. He had 10 rebounds. This was his career high in terms of rebounds. And I've mentioned that he is starting to figure out a way to impact the game outside of his shooting. I think rebounds are a really good way of doing that. He's a big guy. He's like 6'6", 6'7", or maybe even a bit bigger. And he's not shrimpy. He's kind of got a pretty big body. He can use that to carve out space and grab boards. And he was really positive this game. I think that he can contribute, and if he can bring one more element to the table, it doesn't have to be defense. Maybe the rebounding is what he does, you know, the secondary skill that he brings to the table after the shooting that he can help the Raptors out with. I think that he's been a positive player, especially when he's making shots. So yeah, that was the game. The Nets are in disarray. Even the players that usually give the Raptors fits, like D'Angelo Russell, usually a Raptors killer. Yeah, he was completely neutered by the Toronto Raptors defense. Noah Clowney is they've been relying on him this year. He was awful as well. And the rest of the team shot very poorly. So the Toronto Raptors held the Nets to 35% shooting. and out-rebounded them by 20. So it was just like an absolute gong show in terms of the rebounding differential. Of course, you're going to get more rebounds if your opponent misses a lot of shots, just because usually the defensive team gets the rebound. The defensive rebounds are easier to get. So if your opponents are missing a lot of shots, you're going to get more rebounds, but 20 is just pretty crazy. So they won the offensive rebounding battle by 7, so that's good to see. This was just a complete whitewashing. The Raptors didn't even play a lot of their starters. I mean, the Nets are doing kind of a similar thing. Cam Thomas has a hamstring injury. He's out for the season. Cam Johnson, I believe, is out for rest, so... Yeah, the Nets just did a better job of tanking. They were ahead of the Raptors at one point in this season, then they blew up their team, sent out a lot of their productive players, and then just dove right into the tank below the Toronto Raptors. So they're probably going to be picking ahead of the Toronto Raptors. They're just more likely to do that. But as you see, when you sim the draft lottery, you know, the Raptors have a chance to jump into the top 4. So it's not, all is not lost. So next up, the Toronto Raptors play against the New Orleans Hornets, and that will be tomorrow in Toronto at 7:30. So interested to watch that one. The Hornets are not a good team. They're one of the worst teams in the entire league. The Raptors are playing at home. This could be another win. So yeah, the Toronto Raptors are going to have to try really hard to tank some of these last games, because these other teams are not making it very easy. The Raptors' schedule is beyond cream puff. Something even softer than that. I don't know, like fluff? I don't know, foam? Who knows? Give me some suggestions in the comments, because that is the video. What do you think about my magic fingers? I was able to get the Toronto Raptors into the top 4 with the sim button. So what do you think? Should I represent the Toronto Raptors at the draft lottery? And also, what do you think about my evaluations? Do you disagree with any of the players that I'm putting at, 1, 2, 3, 7, 10? Let me know here in the comments and who you would pick, because I love talking to Toronto Raptors fans. We really are the best. And if you haven't already, please hit the like button and subscribe, because that really helps the channel grow. It helps the algorithm know that this is content that Raptors fans enjoy. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.